Welcome to Home Groups. It has been a while, so hope you're enjoying your time together with your home group. It's good to see you. Want to start off tonight by asking you a question, and then we're actually going to pause and take a minute or so, and you can discuss this question with your neighbor. So here is your question. What is a miracle? What is a miracle? So take a few seconds and talk about that with your neighbor. Go.
Hey, boys! Get off the ice! Not safe!
You're not going anywhere. Stop.
All available trucks. We have a drowning event at Lake St. Louis.
14-year-old male, unresponsive and pulseless.
Everyone clear?
No pulse.
There's nothing more we can do.
This is the most powerful, compelling, verifiable, authenticated miracle story in recent history. Period, bar none.
Joyce Smith?
Yes?
We're doing everything we can for your son, but John isn't responding.
There her son was without a pulse. She touched his feet, they were completely cold. And she said, you know what? I'm not gonna claim death, I'm about to claim life.
Please, God, send your Holy Spirit to save my son!
The EKG machine started going off. He came back to life.
I drowned for 15 minutes and then I was without a pulse for an additional 45. So in all, I was dead for over an hour.
So far in my life, God had always been and done what he said he could do. And so I just started praying.
Mom came in, she prayed, and instantly I had a pulse.
Everybody that I explain the plot to gets goosebumps just even thinking about that something like this could happen.
It's hard to believe. And I'm a part of the story, telling the story, and it's hard for me to believe.
This movie is described as a medical miracle because just that one idea, patient dead, mother prayed, patient came back to life. This is a modern day resurrection story.
When Joyce finally gave that complete surrender to God and said, you have to take this, there's no question that something miraculous happened.
Your son is alive, but his pulse is very, very weak. At best, we have a long road ahead. And I'm not gonna lie to you. We're in uncharted territory.
It's not just about one miracle. It's about a series of miracles. Those miracles happened to John and to Joyce and that family, but then, like a ripple in a lake, those miracles just keep moving out. The circle keeps getting wider.
Oh, this is so wonderful. Wow, look at these prayers.
Our church and our friends were phenomenal. There was probably 20 people that had already started gathering. By that evening, there was probably close to 75 to 100 people there, and they were overflowing the waiting room out into the hallway.
How people rallied around John and his family in their time of need. People being really selfless and sacrificing their time, their resources. The power in the community and power in faith is strong, and it's something that this world needs all through and through.
We had a prayer vigil with 300 people at the church, and to hear people pray and cry out to God for John, I thought this is what heaven is like. This is probably what heaven is like. They just are believing for God, just a spirit of faith.
Prayer is the centerpiece of the story. People coming together praying, believing that God listens and answers our prayers. Simply stated, prayer changes everything.
If it be your will. I think the most amazing thing about this movie is that it happened. This isn't fiction.
True stories like this make the case for God. The skeptic will say, man, I don't know. Okay, Devon, I know you were involved in heavens for real, but okay, I don't believe that. Okay, miracles from heaven. I don't know how she got cured when she fell down the tree, but no, I don't think so. Ah, man, wow. I mean, the kid is alive. Maybe there's something to that.
I come from a family of doctors, and this is one of those stories that the medical community knows, and there's no explanation. I mean, it's truly, in that sense, a miracle.
We rely on doctors, and I think doctors are great. I mean, they're a huge blessing. But there's a time when they say there's nothing else we can do. And I think it's that moment where God's able to step in and you see his hand.
And the moment she prays, not an hour later, not 5 days later, the moment she prays, every single apparatus on that boy turns on.
There's simply no other explanation. Your son's a miracle.
So in that clip that we just saw, if you haven't seen that breakthrough movie, go check that out, because what takes place in that movie is what we would say is it's a miracle. And they talked about it several times, how a miracle took place and that boy, he came back to life, really. He was dead for a considerable amount of time, like an hour, and he came back to life. So that's a miracle. When I think of miracles, I think of stories like that. But then I also think of Jesus, because Jesus performed miracles all the time. And tonight, that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at a couple of the miracles of Jesus. And so we're going to start out in John chapter 5. Listen to this story.
Chapter 5. Jesus heals a lame man. Afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Inside the city, near the sheep gate, was the pool of Bethesda, with 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, lay on the porches. One of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. When Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him,
"Would you like to get well?"
"I can't, sir,"
the sick man said.
"I have no one to put me in the pool when the water bubbles up. Someone else always gets there ahead of me."
Jesus told him,
"Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk."
Instantly the man was healed. He rolled up his sleeping mat and began walking.
So there was this local, basically like a local legend surrounding this pool of Bethesda. And the legend claimed that every once in a while, just kind of randomly, an angel of the Lord would come down from heaven and would just kind of like start stirring up the water, and the water would start bubbling up. And when that happened, the first person into the pool, after the angel stirred up the water, that first person was miraculously healed. And so in our story, all the sick people, all the lame people, they're just hanging around the pool waiting for, hey, I hope the angel comes today. Hey, I hope the angel comes today. And they're just waiting for this angel to come and stir up the water so that they can jump in. And Jesus comes to the pool and he sees this man who has been, think about that, this man who has been paralyzed for 38 years. That's a long time. And Jesus has compassion on this man and he says, "Do you want to get well?" And the man's paralyzed. It's like, I don't have anybody to help me in the pool. I can't move myself. I'm paralyzed. Nobody will help me get in the pool. So even if that angel comes and stirs up the water, it's like I'm stuck here. I'm stuck. And that's when Jesus says, hey, stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. And instantly, the man is healed. And when we see Jesus perform miracles in the Bible, what we have to understand is the miracles of Jesus, when he performs a miracle, it points to his identity and it points to his mission. And when we look at this miracle, when we're talking about the identity of Jesus, who he is, it shows that Jesus is a healer. He cares about people. He loves people. He can perform the miraculous. That he has power. He wants God's best for people. It points to him being the truth. Like he speaks the truth. In the Bible, it talks about how the last shall be first and the first shall be last. The guy at the pool was last. He didn't have anybody to help him. And when Jesus comes along, all of a sudden now he's first. All these different things point to Jesus' identity, who he is. And in our story, what happens is that miracle took place on the Sabbath. And the law says that you're supposed to rest on the Sabbath, no work on the Sabbath. And so the Jewish leaders are mad at Jesus because he healed somebody, and they would say healing is working on the Sabbath. So Jesus is violating the law. He's violating the Sabbath, one of the commandments, by working on the Sabbath. And they also know that Jesus, he claims to be God's son, and so that was super offensive to them, claiming to be God's son. And so the Jewish leaders were so upset, and this is what blows my mind, is they were so mad that Jesus was breaking these laws that they're trying to they want to kill Jesus. And we know that part of the mission of Jesus, why he came, was to set people free. And the Jewish leaders are so focused on all these rules, and they had so many rules and regulations set up that the people were in bondage. The people were slaves to the Sabbath. Instead of the Sabbath day being a day of rest, where they focused on just resting and being with God and giving that day to God, instead they were focused on, I got to follow all these rules, and can I do this and can I do that, and I better not do this and I better not do that because I don't want to break any of these rules. And Jesus is saying, hey, you know what? The Sabbath is designed for freedom. Your identity isn't found in what you can do, but in whose you are. You're God's child. That is who you are. You don't have to work for that. You don't have to earn that. And that's super important piece of our identity, understanding that we are God's child if I put my faith and trust in him. And as a result, I just receive God's love, God's forgiveness, God's acceptance, all those things. I don't have to earn them. I don't have to work for them. Another miracle we want to check out is when Jesus feeds the 5,000. So listen to this one.
Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked,
"Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?"
He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied,
"Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them."
Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up.
"There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd?"
"Tell everyone to sit down,"
Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Afterward, he did the same with the fish. And they all ate as much as they wanted.
So you think about that. 5,000, the scriptures say 5,000 men. Okay, that's not counting the women and children. So we're talking a considerable amount of people here. And Jesus asks a simple question to his disciples. He sees the thousands of people, and he's like, hey, where are we going to get bread to feed all these people? Where are we going to get bread? And Philip's just kind of a practical guy, and he's crunching these numbers, and he's like, it would take more than a year's wages for everyone to have like a piece of bread. I don't know where we're going to get that money. I don't know where we're going to get that bread. I don't know how this is going to work. And then Andrew. What we see with the disciple Andrew is always bringing people to Jesus, if you notice that in the scriptures. And so, again, you think, okay, there's thousands of people here, and Andrew's like, hey, I found this little boy, and he packed a lunch. And in his lunch, he's got 5 barley loaves. I mean, it's probably like 5 buns and 2 fish. And the fish aren't like, hey, I'm going to mount these suckers on my wall. They're like almost like sardines. Okay, so 5 buns and 2 sardines. And Andrew brings this boy to Jesus with his sack lunch, and Jesus, hey Jesus, this is what I found: 5 loaves, 2 fish. And then Andrew even, he knows, he's like, I don't know how this is going to feed everybody, but this is what we got. Jesus, this is what I found. I'm bringing them to you. So Jesus is like, okay, have everybody sit down. He takes the loaves and the fish, and he gives praise and gives thanks to God. And the miracle is just everybody ate as much as they wanted. Like, how does that happen? How does the bread just not run out when you only have 5 loaves and 2 fish? And this is what we want to focus on, is how Jesus starts a new pattern here of how God wants to work in the world. Jesus has the power and he has the authority to do whatever God asks him to do. And he can do it all by himself. We know that. Jesus can do whatever he wants. He can do it all by himself. But Jesus invites us to help him. Jesus wants us to help him. That's his desire. He wants us to participate in the gospel. And Jesus wants us to take what do you have? Take what you have. Don't focus on what you don't have. Don't focus on what you can't do. take what you have and give it to Jesus. Let Jesus use what you have, and then trust Jesus that he can do what only Jesus can do. And so you think about, okay, what do I have? What do I have? Well, we have availability. And when we look in the story, there's Andrew. He was available to do something with Jesus. Philip was they were with Jesus. They said, we're going to make ourselves available to Jesus. He was there. We have obedience. Okay? We choose if we're going to listen to God or if we're not. And Andrew did something. He's like, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to follow Jesus, obey Jesus. I'm going to do something. He found what he had. I got this little boy, his sack lunch. I'm going to bring it to Jesus. We have faith. You look at our story. Andrew knew, like, okay, 5 loaves, 2 fish, like, that's a snack for me. Okay, that's this little boy's lunch. That's a snack for me. We've got thousands of people. He didn't know what Jesus was going to do, but he knew that Jesus could do something, and he had faith. He trusted in Jesus that, you know what, I'm going to give you what I have, Jesus, and then I'm going to trust you and put my faith in you that you're going to do the rest. Okay, this doesn't make sense, but you're going to do the rest. And this is kind of what it means to grow in our faith, is that we don't know what's going to happen in the end. We can't see that far ahead, but we give what we have to Jesus. We do what he asks us to do, and we trust that he's going to do the rest. That's taking a step of faith, not knowing the end result, but trusting, I'm going to give you this, Jesus, and you do it. You go, okay? I don't have anything else. I'm giving you what I have. We also have prayer. And when we look in our story, what does Jesus do? He prays. He gives thanks to God for what has been provided. And the Bible talks about how we're supposed to give thanks in every situation. And that, it's like it's easy to give thanks when things are going good. And when things are going bad, that's a different story. That's all of a sudden we can get kind of angry at God, wonder why this is happening, start to get bitter. The Bible says, no, in every situation, give thanks. Find what you can be thankful for and give thanks. Even knowing that, you know what, I will be stronger having gone through this difficult thing, having gone through this circumstance that's really hard. God's still with me. Or, you know what, I'm going to give thanks because once I go through this, I'll be able to minister and help other people when they go through it because I'll be able to relate to them and identify with them. And so we need to learn how we can be thankful in each and every situation, believing that, you know what, God has our best in mind. He's going to provide for us. He loves us. God has given each one of us, you have unique gifts. You have spiritual gifts that God has given you that he wants you to use for advancing his kingdom. Each one of you has specific talents and abilities that God has given you and he wants you to use. You have passions that he's put inside of you and he wants you to use them. Give them to him and let him take those and run with it and see what he can do. He wants us to participate with him. He wants to use us to minister to others and to, what we say, ministering is to help people and point them to Jesus. That's what God, he wants us to partner with him ministering to this broken world. So we get the opportunity to do that, and that's a blessing. So that's our home group lesson for tonight. We got some great discussion questions for you to tackle and answer. So have fun with your leaders and in your small groups, and we will see you next week at large group. Goodbye.